Hey everyone, it's Peek. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Pokemon Unite video. The mobile version of Unite has finally launched, and today we're talking about some very important settings that you need to enable before you start playing. Whether you are a Nintendo Switch veteran of the game coming over to the mobile version just to play on the side, or a mobile player just starting playing for the first time, you really need to enable these settings that I'm going to talk about today because they will really just help improve your gameplay and allow you to do some things that people who don't have these settings enabled are not going to be able to do. Before we get on with that though, I want to take a second to thank today's sponsor, and that is Skillshare. When I first started making videos, there were a lot of things I wanted to learn in order to make my content the best it could possibly be. Between graphic design on Photoshop for my thumbnails and video editing in Premiere Pro, there was a lot I wanted to learn. Skillshare is an online learning community that I've used myself to help me jumpstart my YouTube channel and learn the things I wanted to learn from experienced veterans. If you've ever wanted to start making content yourself or just learn something new, Skillshare is the perfect community to join. And the great thing is there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes so you can keep building on top of what you've already learned. I found the class from Marcus Brownlee titled YouTube Success, Script, Shoot, and Edit to be really helpful for learning about how to scale up my production quality and improve the content on my channel to continue to grow our community here. With thousands of classes for creators or just someone looking to pick up a new skill or improve a current hobby, Skillshare is curated specifically for learning. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. So what you're going to want to do first is just click the top left corner of your screen where your character portrait is. That will actually open the menu. You can then scroll down here to the settings icon, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. What are the best settings that you can use to improve your gameplay and just make you the best player at Unite you can be? The graphics quality setting is the first one we're going to talk about, and I actually recommend putting on low because low versus highest, in my experience, doesn't really make a huge difference. Low will just allow you to get the most performance out of the game. Consistent frame rates of 60 FPS, of course. Speaking of that, we're going to enable the frame rate as the high setting. I recommend that on pretty much most phones unless you just have like a super old potato phone, but I think most phones should be able to run this at 60 FPS, so definitely do that. Of course, you can change your language here. And there's some other settings here that don't really matter for gameplay. So we're just going to move right onto the controls screen. This is where you're really going to get a lot of value. So the first one you're going to want to look at up here is the opponent lock-on priority. I personally have this set to lowest remaining HP %. Now, there's some reasoning behind that, and I will talk about that just briefly, but it kind of just depends on the characters you want to play mostly. For example, I play a lot of ranged characters, so the lowest remaining HP % makes sense because you are often attacking tanks. In a front-to-back style team fight in a MOBA, you definitely want to be just hitting the front line. It really doesn't matter what you really pick for this setting. I think if you're a melee player, like you play characters that only go in melee range, just go ahead and enable closest. The biggest thing you want to keep in mind with this setting is that, just a quick example, a 5% HP Snorlax is going to get hit before a 6% HP Cinderace. However, if you enable lowest remaining HP value, that Cinderace is actually going to have lower HP than a Snorlax, so you will hit the Cinderace. So it really just depends on what you're trying to do. I personally like the percentage one just because that's what I'm used to from all the previous mobile MOBAs I've played, but this is the only one that I'd say is kind of just up to personal preference or your personal playstyle. Again, if you play melee characters, probably just enable closest. Ranged, pick one of these. But generally it doesn't matter because you're going to see here we can actually enable a targeting wheel that allows us to target specific Pokemon later. Let's talk about this next control, which is attack controls, the advanced controls. You definitely want to enable this. This is a control that allows you to create a little button there. You can see right here where I'm tapping to only attack wild Pokemon. This is really good for team fights or just when you're laning against enemy Pokemon. This allows you to hit wild Pokemon with priority. Whereas if you're just tapping the normal attack button, you're actually only going to target enemy Pokemon, meaning opponents that are within your range. So you really need to enable this setting. This is just the most important setting of this entire video. This will allow you to specifically attack wild Pokemon so you can secure the last hit, steal wild Pokemon farm from the enemy team. This is incredibly important. So make sure you're enabling this advanced controls button right here. In terms of automatic basic attacks, it's just personal preference really. I personally turn it on so I can auto attack and then pan my map around and kind of see while I'm attacking an objective where the enemy team is. But you can turn it off if you'd like a little bit more precise control. I don't think it really matters because you're going to be auto attacking most of the game anyway. I do recommend having this on just because it allows you to have more free movement with the camera while you're auto attacking things. In terms of the lock-on icon, if you see here, this will actually pop up portraits by your moves of different Pokemon that you can click. So for example, if I tap this icon where this Lucario is, I will auto attack that Lucario specifically, and all my moves will target that Lucario. It's really, really useful to enable this, and this setting actually works a lot better than it does on Nintendo Switch. So definitely enable this. This will allow you to specifically target Pokemon that are low HP or a specific low health or squishy target that you want to target in the game. Going ahead on to move aim settings, this is actually something you will want to leave on movement panel in my opinion. If you enable icon, it will actually make it so that you basically have to drag your moves to the icon of the Pokemon that's nearby. Whereas with the movement panel setting enabled, you will actually be able to quickly swap depending on where you're aiming to attack a specific Pokemon with your move. In my opinion, it's just the better setting, but of course, if you want to kind of utilize that lock-on icon that's around, you can actually just turn on this icon setting, and what that'll do is it'll allow you to just drag a move to a specific portrait, and as long as they're in range, your move will cast to that portrait, if that makes sense. Or rather, to that enemy Pokemon is what I mean. The next important setting we're going to talk about is in-motion pursuit distance and in-motion pursuit mode. This is a really, really bad setting in my opinion. Basically, what this does, and I turn it off, of course, is it makes you chase enemy Pokemon if you're spamming the auto attack button or like using a move. So it's gonna make you jitter and stutter your movement back and forth because the game is gonna like be wanting you to attack the Pokemon that you're targeting and spamming auto attack on. But if you're trying to run away, this is just really just not a good setting to enable. I recommend turning it off just because this will allow you to have perfect control over your character, because if you turn it on, the game will actually move your character towards the target that you're attacking, even if you're like basically moving your control stick in the opposite direction. It gets a little finicky, so I would just recommend turning it off. In terms of scoring controls, definitely enable press button. If you have the hold button down setting enabled, it makes it really difficult to just spam the score button. It's super important that you're able to spam the score button in situations where you're trying to score with your team, where you're getting interrupted, especially trying to score early goals in this game. You definitely want to enable this setting. So just trust me, if you haven't played the game yet, you're just starting, definitely turn that on. You will thank me later for sure. For the rest of the settings, I've hopped into the practice mode just to show you what they do, but you don't need to hop into the practice mode. These settings are available the same way they are in the menu that you should be currently in. So in terms of move canceling controls, basically the difference between this is that the default allows you to drag it to an X icon. That basically just makes it a little more precise. So I do recommend leaving this on as default. Otherwise, if you do slide away, I'll just show you the difference real quick. You can see here I drag up to this little X icon and I cancel my move. So if you're like, oh shoot, I don't actually want to use my Unite move, drag it to the X, that'll cancel it. However, if you do, your controls the other way, slide away, basically all you have to do is just drag it to this X icon, but it can get really imprecise. So like I wouldn't recommend doing this really, because you can see like, oh, if I'm really trying to line up a Unite move here in this choke point, like I'm actually just going to end up canceling the Unite move. So in order to have the most precision, the most accuracy with your controls, definitely leave on the default in my opinion. In terms of move panel sensitivity, I have this at max just because you really need to be able to like drag your abilities quickly. If you have it on like super low, you can see here if I drag it all the way low, then it's it's very sluggish. Like I move my thing and it just like it takes a long time to catch up, right? So in my opinion, just leave this on the maximum high sensitivity setting. It's really like not that hard to get used to in terms of speed. I mean, you can turn it down a little bit if you want, but I would really recommend for the fastest reaction time, the snappiest control scheme, this is just what you're going to want to have enabled for sure. The next setting we have here is camera follows moves. This is actually really important for you to enable because what this does, here, let me just show you. If you use a move like Greninja's Unite move, Cinderace's Unite move, stuff like that, that has pretty long range, the camera will actually move for you to be able to see what you're aiming at. If you have this disabled, what this does is it basically prevents you from seeing what you're actually aiming at. Like for example, down here, if I'm trying to attack some enemies, I can't actually see what I'm aiming at, right? So you definitely want to turn that on. That just allows your camera to move without you having to like do some weird claw grip thing where you're like doing this and like also panning your move at the same time. You can do it, but you see I have like 3 fingers on the screen right now. And it's, not ideal for fast movements. So definitely leave this on. And the same thing with move, aim follows movement direction. This is a little bit different, but basically what this is going to allow you to do is, for example, a movement skill like double team. Instead of targeting at enemies, it will just target in the movement direction that you're going just by tapping it, which is really, really nice for like eject button and things like, of course, double team. Just like mobility skills, this is really, really good in order to just make snappy escapes, movement, and make sure you're dashing the same way you want to go. If you find that you're dashing into enemies using your mobility skills, you probably have the setting off, so go ahead and turn that on for sure. Move aim snaps to nearby targets. Turn this off just because this will allow you to kind of basically have more control over where you're aiming and just make it a little bit snappier. I like to have it off. I like my movement and my aiming and all my skills to go exactly where I want them, not for it to snap to any nearby target, because this will really just throw you off. And I would just get used to having this off. Any sort of like auto aim or stuff like that in this game is really bad in my opinion. So I definitely recommend just turning that setting off. In terms of camera sensitivity, this one's really important. Definitely don't leave it off, because if you're not using your camera, you are losing out on like 60% of the important information that you could have in this game. But I really hate this movement panel setting. Let me kind of show you what it does first. If you're moving your camera, you just like basically go up here and it's like a little movement panel, an extra movement panel that allows you to pan the camera around. You can see it's super slow, right? However, if I turn on the slide feature, I'm just moving my finger on the screen, but it's allowing me to move the camera much faster. So personally, I found that the sensitivity setting for this is good just about where I have it right now. You can max it out to like high, but I thought like just about here was pretty decent. So the final setting in this menu is actually locked to practice mode. So I kind of lied to you earlier. If you do want to adjust this, you can come into practice mode, but personally, I don't really see a need to adjust it. This allows you to basically just move around where your moves on the right-hand side are and your movement panel on the left-hand side of the screen. So if you find your thumbs can't quite reach stuff, you can kind of move it to the left or the right. I just am going to leave it, where it is as recommended. You'll definitely want to enable this boosted attack gauge. Basically what this allows you to see is when you have a boosted attack or not. This is really helpful for basically every single Pokemon. You can see here that as I'm auto attacking, a yellow little bar will appear below Greninja's health bar. This just allows me to see that I have a boosted attack as my next attack. You can also see that my auto attack button is glowing yellow, and that will just allow me to hit that boosted attack and know that I have it. So sometimes what you can do is that you can actually charge up a boosted attack, prepare it for an enemy, and when you see that enemy, boom, hit him with the boosted attack. You wouldn't be able to know if you have a boosted attack, of course, unless you really had that gauge enabled. You really need to know kind of basically when you have a boosted attack. It's super important information, so definitely enable that setting. It's not enabled by default. Show cooldown decimal values, definitely turn that on. It just allows you to see, of course, here, let me just turn my cooldowns on. It allows you to see exactly when you are going to get your cooldown off. So you see 2, 1, and then it says like the decimal values all the way up to 0. So I would turn that on just so you know exactly about when you're going to have your cooldowns. Very important there. And the last setting, of course, here is highlight outlines for opposing Pokemon and screen edges. This one's kind of hard to show, but if you can see here, the enemy Slowbro is outlined in orange right here, like if he's near the edge of my screen. But as I approach him, he actually loses that outline. So it's really subtle. It basically just allows you to differentiate between like opponents and not opponents. It's easier if I like pan my camera. You can see here, like his outline appears and then it disappears. Outline appears, disappears. If he's on the edge of your screen, it just allows for more visual clarity. I turned it on just by default. I think it's on by default. I can't actually remember, but go ahead and turn it on. If you're walking up to a team fight, you're not sure which Slowbro is yours, this will allow you to see basically who your teammate is and who's the enemy. So that's about it for the setting video, you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. These settings will really just allow you to up your game, be more accurate, get more information with moving the camera in the right directions and at the right speed, and really just up your game in general Unite. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, consider subscribe to the channel. I do have a daily Pokemon Unite video at least, especially going to be a lot more here with the mobile release and everything coming out with all sorts of news, data mines, leaks. I'm kind of your one-stop shop for Pokemon Unite. So if you enjoy the game, definitely drop a subscribe and leave a like on the video if this really helped you, and comment down below what you'd like to see from me in the future. Really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.